introduce Elizabeth, and then she can take it away. Today's webinar is Feed and Read, Literacy, Scarcity, and Food Desert Mobile Outreach. Um, Today's speaker, we welcome Elizabeth Rheaume from the Warren County Public Library. She's the Mobile Outreach Librarian. And we would also like to recognize that KDLA is supported by Library Science and Technology Act, and we thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for sponsorship of this webinar. All right, Elizabeth, welcome, and thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Good morning, and thank you for asking me to. If you have questions along the way, feel free to just ask them as we go. Don't feel like you need to save them to the end. I love it when it's more organic and like a conversation. So today I'm going to be talking about basically what I do, my role in the library. And I have a kind of a specialty job, and so I do a route called Feed and Read. And so I'm going to talk to you about that and see how maybe you can see in your library system something that you could do as outreach that might be thinking out of the box. I have the benefits of having several partnerships. The biggest one we have is a partnership with Megan's Mobile Grocery Bus, and it is a nonprofit organization that is staffed by our local housing authority. And so it is literally a grocery store on wheels, and it targets the food desert areas in our community. And what we noticed is those same areas that were food deserts are also areas that have literacy scarcity and a lack of transportation. And so those were people in our community that were not being reached by the library. And so partnering with the mobile grocery and following them on route has allowed us to go to those individuals. And so with the partnership, we have the same mission, we have the same target audience, and we're offering different services. We are so much a team that most of the people we serve are not really sure who works for which organization. I have folks that give me their grocery orders, and the grocery bus driver has people who asked her for a book recommendation or where their hold is. So we work very closely together, and it works really, really well. So it's kind of nice. There is a lot of value in partnerships. Some of the areas we are going to are a little bit riskier, and so there's safety in numbers. Having a partnership also allows only one library staff member to do the job. And so your partner then that you're with for safety is through another organization. And so your library system is not having both salaries. So that helped us in staffing that way. And joining with something that was already established, we've had a built-in patron base. And so that's allowed us to already reach people that might be interested, and having this team of a connection allows the individuals that we're serving to get their needs met while they get to do something fun. So while they're waiting for their grocery order to be filled, they can browse and search for a book or a magazine or a DVD or ask a reference question. And it doesn't take any extra time out of their day. I have found that this route has provided lots of opportunities for new partnerships. And so as I meet people and I meet different organizations, it's just kind of stretches and grows in really cool ways. And so that's been really nice. And we are out in the community. So we are seeing the people where they live. We are seeing their needs and how we can assist, and making sure that it's a really practical and helpful connection. Who we serve. Our mission is for our library is to bring access to all. And so this route is one way that we do that. And so we're getting to reach diverse populations, senior citizens, families, children, individuals with lack of transportation, individuals with mobility issues or physical limitations. On my route, I even have a couple of individuals who are deaf. And so they both speak, but I have to write out everything that I say to them because I am not fluent in sign language. And so you get some different opportunities when you're out that you might not expect to have. This is a slide that shows our schedules. So the bookmobile doesn't join the grocery bus on all stops, just most stops. So our schedule looks slightly different than theirs. And I also have a few stops that are just bookmobile that are not listed on this schedule. So the feed and read schedule there shows that I joined them on, and then their schedule is on the right. And so we hit the same stops on a weekly basis. So every Monday looks the same, every Tuesday looks the same, every Thursday, Friday. So that way the individuals we're serving, they know the hours that we're going to be there, and they know the time slot, so they can expect us and be ready. And having that consistency helps, I think, keep it going and having folks to know exactly what to expect. If we are going to make a change for like holidays, we try to let them know at least a week or two in advance so that they know to get more books or more groceries, and they're not surprised by it. I also let individuals know that if they're inclement weather, like if we're having ice or snow, that you should be prepared probably not to see us. And so just to help them to know what to expect with our schedules. What we do. I think the easiest way to sum this up is we're meeting people where they are. So lots of things, instead of just everything, might not look like library work. We're finding ways to help, providing conversation, checking in with senior citizens. Sometimes we're the only individual that they might be in a week. And so just making sure that they're still doing well and that they don't need us to contact some other organization to assist them is helpful. Just be there to show that we care, build relationships, and provide resources. And so a few of the ways that I do that I've listed here. So I have the bookmobile. It is a large transit vehicle set up with books, and I'll show you some pictures of that here on another slide. We have a seed library. So I keep, it's very glamorous, a gallon baggie full of seeds for herbs and flowers and vegetables, and individuals can select from that so they can grow things on their own. I answer reference questions out on routes. Thankfully, most of them are things that I can easily Google. Occasionally, I'll have to get back with you to find your answer. We have a library of things. So sometimes I will be delivering like a sewing machine or a telescope, or some of our items, cake pans, things that are not your typical library things, and they really love that fact. I had a patron bragging the other day that she's a foster grandma for community action, and so the library had come and done a spiel for the staff, and she kept interrupting them, telling them, well, my librarian brings me those. So I was like, Miss Joyce, you did not need to say that to our library. They already know. We have a community care library, which this is something that I am really, really excited about. So it will have things like ponchos and emergency water pouches, hygiene wipes, different hand warmers, those kind of things. And so individuals can just take what they need. And so having those out on route, I think is handy, just for those who might want to grab it that way instead of having to come into the library. Assist with groceries. I do get to help bag groceries, pass out a list of what these grocery bus offers. Sometimes they'll ask me to help them pre-tally up so they know about how much they're spending, help carry groceries to their porch if they're using a walker or have mobility issues. Donated books. I do keep a crate of books that are donated, and it kind of works like a swap system. And so if something is wrong with your library account, or you just see something that looks interesting, or maybe you're going on a trip and you want a little bit longer than like a 2-week checkout, that's when folks will usually go through my donated book bin, and they'll select a donated book, and so they know they don't have to return it. They can return it if they want to, or if they have some that they're finished with of their books, they can drop it in that bin, and then one of their neighbors can read that one. And so it's just kind of a nice low-key way. It is super helpful in one of the communities that I go to that has a lot of immigrant families, and the children are just learning English, and they have not mastered the concept of borrowing. And so library materials do not come back. And so this allows us a way to just give them a book. And so that has been very helpful to get books in the hands of those children. Print services. I allow my patrons to email me things they need printed. Usually that's like a Pinterest recipe, or maybe some like logs to fill out for their family's genealogy, things of that kind of nature. Passive programs. I get to team up with our friends of the library at various times and pass out different treats to them, and so that's really nice. I am a notary, so I can do notary services on their porches for them, or at the side of the bookmobile. A big thing I do is just connect patrons to the community resources. If they're needing diapers, help them to know who their family resource coordinator at their elementary school is. And patrons also can pick up their holds straight from the bookmobile. What we tried. So something I have really learned on this route is that I need to be willing to try new things. As a system, we need to be willing to try new things, and we need to be willing to fail, because it's okay to learn the hard way. We have tried some things that were not as successful as we had hoped they would be, and some things we have tried that we have learned didn't work at all, and so we just stopped. One of those we tried, this was called Lending Light. We took books that had been withdrawn from the library system, and we tried it in the neighborhood of our immigrants, and put in the old-fashioned little cards where you stamp them with a date, and tried to teach kids how to borrow, and then let them return those books, and that way it wasn't using budget materials for that. The issue we found was none of the children returned the books, and so that didn't work. Also, I'm only at that stop for 20 minutes, and so to stamp or write in a date on 60 plus individual children's books is not time. It doesn't work in the time frame, and so that program we kind of just faded out, and we shared donated items with them. Neighborhoods. We have been in other neighborhoods that you see currently on our schedule, and as needs change in those neighborhoods, sometimes they no longer have a need for our service, and sometimes all of the individuals that had used our services there move away, because it's areas where individuals typically don't stay very long. Our vehicle wrap is something that we've tried that is not as successful as we hoped. It has various languages on it to talk about read and play and learn. And I have had individuals in the community who barely speak English to tell me that some of the words do not say what we think they say. So that's been a little bit tricky, or letters should have been flipped. So, and our vehicle wrap in the very, very front, like if you're looking at the headlights, does not say library. And so if people are approaching from the front of the vehicle, they're wondering, am I a food truck? Am I an ice cream truck? What kind of service am I offering? And so clearly labeling a vehicle is something that we have learned is important. And so if we ever rewrap this vehicle, I think we'll do it a little bit differently. Practical advice. Things I did not consider or even dream might be super important to my day-to-day work life. And so being out on route, as you know, in Kentucky, it's got really cold this week. And so you kind of need to consider some of these practical things like weather. So have a weather plan. Let patrons know what your weather plan is. Also, really important, scout out restrooms and plan breaks along your route. Know where you can, as a librarian, can have those stops. Technology backup plan. You might have your Wi-Fi box, you might have your Chromebook working before you leave the building, and you're going to get out on route some days and it's not going to work. So learning a backup plan, if that's write barcodes on a piece of paper, if it's take some pictures, find what works for you, but make sure that you have something that you can do, call a branch, something so that you can help people still check out books if your technology fails you. Accessibility. The transit vehicle sets up a little high, and so I have noticed that senior citizens have a little difficulty getting in and out of it. And if folks are using a wheelchair or a walker, it's literally impossible. So I have used the back doors, and I open them and I have faced a display shelf out so that you can access it from not even entering in the bookmobile. And so just seeing what works for the vehicle you're using. We have also done things if it is a super windy or rainy day. Our library system has a Rheaume, so it's like a hatchback kind of small SUV vehicle, and I have just placed crates in the back. And so having that hatchback gives kind of a short roof over it, and that allows patrons not to get as wet. It's also not as top heavy when we're out in wind. And so sometimes it's just finding a new way to make the materials accessible than you typically do. Recommended items for librarian. I have found it's very helpful to make sure I have enough water for the day and for the current weather, whether that be a hat or a rain jacket. Hand lotion and hand sanitizer. So keeping those things because we're going to go through a lot of them without having to sink. Sunscreen for the summer, and bug spray. And by bug spray, I don't just for the mosquitoes. In the neighborhoods we go to, there are some that have some different needs, and so sometimes I have experienced bed bugs and fleas, and so being prepared for on route, I recommend you have a plan for them in place so that you're just not unpleasantly surprised. Recommended items for the vehicle, things that I just keep stocked on there at all times, is a roll of paper towels, Clorox wipes, like medical gloves to deal with things that might come up, baggies, plastic bags in case it's raining to keep the books dry, hand sanitizers, tissues, and a first aid kit. All right, here is some pictures of the vehicle. And so we went with a large transit vehicle, and then we outfitted it with some shelves. And so this size vehicle is easier to maintain than like a traditional really large bookmobile because more places will service it. Also, due to its smaller size, it fits in more places. A lot of the parking lots in apartment complexes I'm going to have really small places to park. And so if I had a traditional bookmobile, I would not fit there. Because with us doing more of an inner city route instead of a rural route, our location stops look a little bit different. So here are some pictures of the inside of the vehicle to kind of give you an idea. And as you can see, bungee cords are very, very helpful. They help things stay in place. And books on the very top shelf love to fly off. And so I have to keep a bungee cord in place over those books at all times. And I have found that having a crate on each end kind of gives it some more stability. We also have some custom cut 2x4s that go in the back behind the books that kind of help them angle up a little bit to make them easier to view and to hold them in place tighter. We have a really handy coworker, and he hand cut and finished all of those woods for us. And then we have these giant sponges, and those also help with they give a little bit more, and so that way it gives some flexibility to hold things in place. So those are some things that I have found on the practical end of keeping the collection in place that helps, but still there are times where I will hit a speed bump or a curve and literally a whole shelf of books will come off. And so when I get to that next stop, it's reshelf everything before I let people on. So that's an interesting and fun part of being a bookmobile librarian. New partnerships and community connections. So I think this is probably the coolest thing I have encountered is the fact that when other organizations hear what you're doing and what you can offer, you have new opportunities that you would not have probably even considered. And so United Way Day of Caring, I had a manager to suggest that I submit a proposal because our community does it really, really big every year. And so I submitted a proposal. It was accepted. I was matched with an organization. And then that organization did a drive for items. And then we were able to pass those items out on route. And so that was just really neat to see like the community kind of join us and help out with items that are not provided by food stamps, like paper towels and toilet paper and cleaning supplies and personal care items. And so those kind of things are sometimes their budget doesn't allow them to get those things even though they're necessary. Hilda's Hospitality House is a senior center through our housing authority. And it's one of my stops that I hit every Thursday. And this staff there is really, really helpful. And so Danny used to drive the grocery bus, and now he works there with the seniors. And he contacted me one day and was saying that people in the community in the heat of the summer were walking from the housing authority to our downtown branch of the library, which is a several mile walk in the like 100-degree temperatures. And he's like, they're doing that because they don't have access to computers. And so I took this need back and checked in, and Court, our director, helps me work it out where we have them to have Chromebooks that are permanently checked out to them that stay at their senior center. And so that way, individuals can go to the senior center and they can use these Chromebooks, or even if children who cannot come into the seniors citizen center, can talk to Mr. Danny, and they can borrow a Chromebook from him. And like right across the street is the elementary school, and the principal there widened their Wi-Fi connection so they can sit right outside the elementary school under a covered area and use the Chromebooks that way. So that way it makes them accessible to all of the housing authority area. The senior citizens there have even made field trips to the library. They've explored our Idea Lab, learned to make pottery and buttons, and they've really taken us up on like library events. We run what we call the Capitol, and so it is like a theater style building, and they show movies and have speakers there, and so they've even made trips to that. Boys and Men is a mentoring program in our city schools. And so through my route and connections with Mr. Danny, we have been able to provide Black history resources and even do a pottery class at their walk-in. And so that's been really, really fun. Our friends at the library was super generous, and they gifted this route with a donation. And so I've been able to use that donation to meet needs. And through that, I was able to make a partnership with our Delafield Co-op to help provide some fresh produce. Gift cards for Kroger and Walmart to cover immediate needs as they come up. And they've done seasonal treats. We just did individual juices and breakfast bars. And those were a big hit because 100% juice is something that most doctors ask senior citizens to keep on hand if they're diabetics, to help with that or other problems. And most of these folks can't afford it, as well as that is one item that the grocery bus does not stock at this time. And so that one was a really big hit to get to share that with them. And as time happens, more things are happening all the time with the funds from the Friends of the Library, and so that's just really exciting. Here is a slide showing United Way Day of Caring and some photos from that event where South Central Kentucky Community and Technical College was the group that selected us. And they came out on route to help pass out those items, and we were able to assist over 50 individuals. And so that really made a big impact. This slide shows Hilda's Hospitality House, which is the Housing Authority Senior Citizen Center. And these photos, several of them from our Idea Lab where they came to learn pottery with us. And then the photo in the center is from the grocery bus fundraiser. And our library sponsored a table, and some individuals from the route were able to come and participate in that event. Friends of the Library. And so this shows some of the things we were able to do with those funds. Things under future possibilities that have happened, freezer pops is one of them. So I was able to purchase freezer pops with those funds and pass those out this summer for some of the neighborhoods that have lots of kids. And I had days where I passed out over 120 freezer pops in one day, most of them at one stop within like 20 minutes. So these kids were just super excited to get a nice cold treat in the heat of summer. And even this week when I went back to that community, I had one of the little tiny preschoolers asking for ice cream because that's what they call it. And I was like, it's freezing cold and you still want a popsicle, which is super cute that they associate the fact that we give them fun treats. And, you know, we're that friendly face for them. So a seasonal treat that we did last December was apples and oranges. And pictured on that bottom right corner is some of the produce from the Delafield Co-op market. But our friends at the library has been very supportive, even if it's I have an individual who was going through some health issues, and so they needed not to have checked out library materials, but they still wanted items to read. Our friends at the library sorts donate materials in the back of our building. And so I left them a note and I was like, if you get any books on sports, could you please save me a few? And by the next week, there was a stack on my desk with a note saying, I hope this is enough. If not, let us know. And so, I mean, they just are willing to help in any way they can and support us. And so I just can't thank them enough. Delafield Co-op Market. Our Delafield Co-op Market is connected with our Hotel Inc. And so they are a community farmers market, and they try to get as many local things as they possibly can, but they also are able to accept food stamps, and they even do the Kentucky Proud Grant right now where they match those dollars. And so if you live in the Delafield community, which is a large majority of where my route is at, then you receive a discount on the prices listed in the store. And so anyone can shop there, whether you live in the area or not. It just depends on the price you'll pay for these items. And it's really nice that those individuals are getting a discount. They can use their food stamps and their SNAP benefits and get those things matched and really get some quality, healthy foods to eat. And so I just went in, and Greg is the market manager, and I said, hey, I received some funds and I'm wondering, can we team up together so that I can shop needs come up for fresh produce? And can I share about that you all are here? Because I know that there are individuals on my route that aren't aware of the services that you all offer. And so the flyer you see on the right, he gave me a whole stack of those, and he set me up with a gift card system where I can just go in and spend part of my gift card, and he keeps track of how much I have left. And that way I don't have to spend it all in one chunk. And we can take those fresh items out on route and pass them out. He received a donation of pints of ice cream and messaged me and was like, hey, could you find a way to pass out ice cream on your route today? And so I grabbed extra ice packs, and I have a giant cooler that was donated that plugs into the cigarette lighter and actually has like a motor and keeps things cold like a freezer. And so I packed all those up, and we were able, I think, to pass out almost 100 pints of ice cream that week for free to folks. And so that was really exciting. Part of those went to the Boys to Men lock-in, and part of those went to those on the route. But just in me setting up this connection with him, then he spreads the joy and passes it back on to us in neat ways like free ice cream. This slide shows the Boys to Men lock-in that we attended. And so we have been invited to this year's lock-in. So we'll see what that looks like and what project we can create with them again this year. But these boys are learning what it's like to be a leader, and how to use their manners, and how to work together. And so one of the things that they learn is how to tie a tie. And so they do different activities and service projects, but every year they have a lock-in. And so this last year was the first year we participated in the lock-in, and we came and we helped them make pinch bowls with pottery. And those boys loved every minute of it. And so it was a nice connection. Little Scholars is a Head Start and child care facility on my route. Literally, I drive through their parking lot 2 times a week, and they had used our services in years past, but of getting like bags of books for their classrooms, but they had stopped doing that. And so in driving through their parking lot, I just kept stopping in and I introduced myself and I shared what services we could offer. And so now they get educational deliveries, story time, and a bookmobile stop where the kids can select their own book. Dishman McGinnis Elementary School, I serve on their Family Resource Council, representing the library. And so it is a elementary school that is on my route. And so we've been able to help with things like summer camps, costume character visits, summer and winter reading programs, educational deliveries, library events. They just had a literacy night at their school and were wanting to do some gift baskets to raffle. And so I provided some looked new used books, and we had some leftover summer reading prizes. And so that way those things were added to their gift baskets. Mobile preschool buses. Our community has mobile preschools, and so they go out in the community and they'll be set up at different locations, and I have been able to team up with them and provide books as they need them to help give additional materials for them. So to me, the main thing I want you to take away from this is how can you partner in your community? So think about your community and its needs. Who's already doing things? Who could you team up with? Who can you share resources with and support each other as you serve in your community? And so I named here some different organizations that are in our community, some of them that I've teamed up with, and some of them that are just out there doing good things. And so Housing Authority, local feeding organizations like Feed America maybe, Parks and Rec, different large community events, Glean, and there'll be a link to that one to give you more, but Glean works with our local stores and produce places, and if it's produce that can't be sold, they find ways to pass it for free. And so that's a really cool one. I can't team up with them on my route because I'm teamed up with the grocery bus, and the grocery bus sells food, and they only work with organizations that are completely free. But we do have a list of like locations for folks that where they can go and get Glean resources. Mobile preschools, and then I put a question mark. So if you're thinking, what is something maybe it's just special and unique to your community? This slide shows a lot of resources, and all of these are linked on the handout with the links. And I think most of them they have put in the chat as well. Our library's website is listed, and we've added some things to our library's website to give resources. Megan's Mobile Grocery Store, its site gives some of the history and why it was started in our community. Megan's Mobile Grocery Store, I don't think I shared, was dreamed up by an individual named Megan, and after her death, some folks made her dream come true, but she had taken and timed out how long it took for an individual to use our public transit system to go to the grocery store. And so if you lived in the Housing Authority area and you hopped on our local bus for transportation, you had to make multiple bus stop and transitions to get to the nearest grocery store. And then you have to be able to carry your groceries home. So that round trip took, I think, 3 hours and 20 some minutes, and you can really only carry about 2 bags of groceries. And so that is really not a feasible way for a family to get groceries, because you have the cost of the bus on top of the amount of time that it takes, and you can only come back with what you can carry. And so she wanted a way where food could be accessible, groceries could be accessible. And so that's how this grocery bus came to be. And so it's got history on that site. The Boys to Men gives a link to their Facebook page and shows off some of the current things they've been up to. Glean is linked there for more information on them. United Way Day of Caring. Most communities have that, so if yours has it, I highly recommend give it a try. Submit something to them when they're doing that Day of Caring. See what can come of that. Maybe you have something unique like a mobile preschool in your area. Delafield Co-op Market has a link to their page, but they have also started a new online store where you can like place your order online, and there are limited delivery time slots and days, and they will deliver those. And so that is brand new. They're just rolling that out. And so I think that's a way that could really impact our community. Our Friends of the Library has a Facebook page. And then a new resource for us in our library system is the Start Here Warren County. And this one is combining all the needs and looking at human needs, whether that be food or clothing, and where can you get those, help with bills, where can you get those in our community? And so this is a resource to help everyone in the community know where to look first. And Capital Books is the used bookstore ran by our Friends of the Library. And it is one of the ways that our Friends of the Library raises money to help fund cool projects like the one they've done with me. I have had the honor to participate in KDLA's food committee. And so right now we are asking each library system to connect with us and take a food survey. So I have linked that food interview questions here. And if you have more questions about that, please email me. And we hope that every county and library system will share what they're doing with food. And so we can all learn from each other. I have a slide here with my contact information. And if you have any questions later, feel free to reach out. I love to brainstorm and connect with other libraries. This one just gives a QR code. So if you have printed this slide, you could scan this QR code to access those links as well. But thank you so much for listening in. I hope you've taken away some ideas that might help. Does anyone have any questions or anything else?
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And please, everybody, feel free to turn on your microphone if you want to ask a question out loud, or you can type it into the chat. Megan, or sorry, Elizabeth, I have Megan's on my brain. That was such a great story that you shared with us. But tell us a little bit about how this interacts with the family resource providers in the schools or the extension offices or 4-H. Are there any other connections or stories related to those areas?
Well, just recently, within the past month, we have a local Montessori school, and they contacted the grocery bus and wanted to do a drive for them because they do a drive every November as a school project. Well, the grocery bus was unable to accept a drive donation since even though they're a nonprofit, they're selling things. And so they said contact the library because the library serves the same exact people that we serve since it's the same routes, and they can take donations. And so the Montessori school called me and they said, we would love to do a drive and gather items, and then we would love for the kids to put those items on your bookmobile for you to pass out on route. And so it was the sweetest thing. I went this past week and we picked up literally they filled my bookmobile up with paper towels and toilet paper and personal care items like shampoo and razors and body wash and hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes and all the things that are really helpful to have, but sometimes budget restraints get them and you can't use like food stamp kind of benefits with them. And so I've been able to pass those out this week, and everyone has just been so thankful, and they've said what a perfect time it's come at with the holidays. And just seeing the community just kind of go together to meet those needs. And the Montessori school was like, we wish we could come out and join you. And so they're trying to brainstorm more ways they can connect. They even talked about maybe doing some caroling and like doing like a bringing their kindergartners and following us like a little mini parade as we go out and around. And so when we make a stop, then the kids would get out and sing, and doing some things like that. But with the family resource um, centers, most of our local elementary schools, middle and high schools have them. And so knowing which neighborhood has which one to connect them to is something I've tried really hard to learn, and occasionally I get it wrong. And the family resource coordinators are very sweet and are like, hey, try so and so, or I can do that anyway, but next time it's so and so. And so just getting to know those individuals and build that relationship really helps me to fill practical needs every day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell us a little bit more about the mobile grocery itself. So, like, if a one of your patrons wants to order something, kind of talk us through the timeline of like they will indicate it at the at the time that they're the grocery stop makes they indicate what they want next time, or they contact you in the interim, or they
Yeah,
contact.
it's immediate. So when we roll up to, like, say, an apartment complex, we'll stop. The grocery bus will open its doors, and Siobhan is the grocery bus driver.
Mhm.
She has an iPad, and so she will literally like type in their order right there on that iPad. It will allow them to pay with their EBT or with a credit card, or they can do cash or check. And then we bag the groceries right there and they get them immediately.
Gotcha.
Um, they do have a paper list of everything that is stocked on the grocery bus.
Mhm.
And so it is long enough, it is front and back of a piece of paper in tiny little font. And so it lists the items and the price. Some individuals that are really organized and use our services a lot will take that little price list and they will have it pre-marked before we get there, like use it as your little grocery shopping list and pre-mark how many of what they want. And then they'll just hand that for their grocery order to be filled. And
Wow.
truthfully, that is super helpful in them listing the items, because it goes quicker when we can just take the piece of paper in.
Right.
We can type them in the iPad and I can help her bag them off the shelves. So,
How about data? Do you track any numbers as far as like, there's certain stops where you typically expect like 10 people per stop, or are the numbers huge? Like, I think earlier you mentioned you might see 60 children at a stop, and I was just blown away by that number. Kind of talk us
yes.
through like what's a
Okay.
typical route
So,
like?
as a library, as you know, libraries, we love stats. So I keep stats like on paper every day of the individuals I come in contact with. So it might just be a conversation, it might be I help you with a library resource, but anyone I come in contact with, I keep a stat of that number of individuals. I also keep stats on reference questions that I assist with, as well as we keep stats for like little scholars that the daycare that I go to of how many bags of books we take them for their educational delivery. And so all of those statistics I keep on a pencil and paper notepad, and then I come back and I input them into our fancy little Google spreadsheet for our whole system. But I have found that in the moment, it's just much easier to do pencil and paper. It also allows me to have the pencil and paper for if someone is wanting a specific book that I might not have on the bookmobile and they want me to bring it for the next week, then I can jot down their name or library card number and the item they're looking for. Because to do that, we use Polaris Leap. That system runs a little bit slow, and so to keep things in a timely fashion when you're only at it for a short time, paper tends to work the best on route. And then when I come back, I use my office time to actually do the work in the computer. So it's a little bit different, but some of our stops we might see 1 to 10 people. Other stops, it is very common for us to consistently see like 15 to 25. And then our immigrant neighborhood that we go to in the summer, we'll see 60 to I think 130 is the most I've seen
Wow.
um, kids, and they're like literally 90% children. Um, in that stops like 20 minutes. So we do have a separate home delivery service. So I serve I think 5 of our home delivery patrons because their addresses literally fall in my neighborhood. And so I was noticing that my coworkers were literally there at the same time, and that's not a good use of resources for 2 librarians to be in the same spot. So I took those 5 over. But for our whole county, we have somebody else that does those services for our homebound. And we also have another individual that delivers to all of our like daycares, preschools, um, and schools delivery bags, like educational deliveries.
Okay, thank you so much. And that was from a question from our chat. Thank you, Jennifer, for the question. Just a couple other comments I'll read from the chat for the recording. Awesome presentation, very informative, and thank you so much for sharing this information. What great services to offer. This is a fabulous example of the good of thinking outside of the box, and I think you absolutely demonstrated that multiple times in your presentation. Just really creative partnerships and ways that your community is meshing together to provide lots of support, lots of wraparound support to the community. It's amazing. Are there any other questions or things to share in the chat? Please feel free to unmute your mic or share in the chat. As you're thinking about that, any last thoughts, Elizabeth, that you want to share? We thank you so much for your presentation today. And I just want to remind everyone as well that the presentation has been recorded. So if your coworkers missed it and want to attend, it will be an archived webinar next week. There is a brief survey that we ask that you complete as well, and I'll put the link to that in the chat, and it's also available in the course shell. But Elizabeth, any final thoughts that you want to share as well?
I just thank you all for joining. And one other thing that I did not mention is one of my deaf patrons uses public transportation, and our public transportation is booked through phone calls. So she's unable to do that. So when I visit her weekly, I book her bus routes stops for the next week. And so I've gotten to know our local transit people. And so just even some unusual things like that that might be beneficial um, can be creative partnerships.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank everyone for attending. This has been a great webinar, and I hope everybody has a great week.